Again, thank you all for joining. And have you heard um, that you could say in the olden days that some of the teachers, they would take just a small portion of the Bhagavad Gita, say, and ask the students to read that, and then they would meditate for an hour, and then they would ask, have you understood? And we can do that, say, reading one of Sister Gyanamata's letters to Master, and then just stop, and then just meditate on that one letter, and try to understand, first of all, you have two souls this highly advanced. Do they really need to write letters to one another? Or was it only for our own good? I think it's both, that Sister Gyanamata, she wanted to make sure that she had absolute crystal clear communication. Isn't even the word, but I want a word. I guess now's not the time to make up my own English word, but a word that means more than communication. I mean, communication on all levels, heart to heart understanding with Master, that she was not out of tune with him, or that he did not misunderstand her in any way, that she did not misunderstand him in any way. And she also wanted to make sure that she was not being untruthful with herself in any way. And this is one of these qualities that we can just take from her letter and meditate on more and more deeply. Because all of us, in a way, we're lying to ourselves. If we even say, oh, I couldn't do that. Maybe Master could do it, maybe Sister Gyanamata could do it, but I can't do that. In fact, in one of those letters, Sister Gyanamata was saying to Master that I find if I just use my will that I can completely control my mind. And we read that and we think, okay, I'll try. I'll use my will and I'll completely control my mind. And for, I think, most of us, our mind goes a little here and there. But who we truly are, that we are something so much more than we realize. There's such a great power that can flow through us if we will let that power flow through us. But we have to open our hearts to that power. We have to invite it in. It's an interesting thing that we have to invite it in. There was a time that we were having some problem in the ashram in Gurgaon long ago. I take that back. It was in the monastery particularly. And I wasn't sure, should I bring this up to Swamiji? Or maybe he's omnipresent and he already knows about everything anyways, and then I'm just channeling negativity. Maybe I should just be quiet about this and just, let God do whatever God does, and he's in charge of the whole thing anyways, and it'll be fine. And I deliberated, and eventually I decided to tell him, and he said, you must tell me these things. You're probably wondering what bad thing happened in the monastery. I honestly can't even remember. But I remember that he said, you must tell me these things. And in that, there was a feeling that I got, and it was someone in omnipresence. It may be like they could have this view of a huge forest, you could say, made up of many, many trees. And in this zoomed out view, that person in omnipresence just sees all of the trees. But if a soul brings his attention to one of the trees that needs help, then he can bring his consciousness deeply into that one tree or that one person in this example, analogy, and see what it needs in order to help, and then go back. But that it's helpful for him to be told about that one particular tree that might be needing help. And I found that just very interesting to contemplate, to think about. I think this is also why Sister Gyanamata wrote those letters, that it actually was helpful for Master to know exactly where he needed to zoom in once again and make things just perfect. Another quality of Sister Gyanamata is that just unflinching fearlessness in terms of looking at herself and in disciplining herself. And we probably want to know, okay, what were the specifics? What time did she wake up in the morning? How many kriyas did she do? Maybe I'll just, copy those outward things. But it seems, as I read these letters, that this was more of an attitude than a particular, she did this thing or that particular thing. That it was an attitude that she manifested because she really wanted truth. She really wanted to know the truth. And she didn't want petty fears to stand in the way of that. And it's not easy to be so self-honest or to look at ourselves like that. There's a different disciple of Master, Kamala Silva, and she wrote a book, and the title is The Flawless Mirror. And that, for her, is what Master was. That he was a perfect reflection for her. Now, yes, he's perfect, but if she has some flaws, because that's a perfect mirror, those flaws are going to show up. A little philosophy here. Somewhere in the beginning of the spiritual path, I just kind of hit upon this theory that all of this world is just simply a reflection of my own self. And then someone maybe treated me very unkindly. And then it's so easy to just drop that theory and say, no, I'm really nice. Something's wrong with, this can't be a reflection of me because I'm really nice. But later on in my spiritual growth, I've come to understand that maybe even if I am really nice in this incarnation, that maybe I did things in a past incarnation that weren't so nice, and that everything has to be paid off. And irregardless of whatever people do to me in this incarnation, that doesn't matter. What matters is my reaction to it here and now, in this incarnation, in this time, whatever. And if I get all upset about it, it's just going to have to be worked out again. I say, all right, just see this coming from Divine Mother. Bless that person anyways. Just say it is what it is. And yes, sometimes we can ask ourselves, is there something I can do to change it? But usually changing other people is not that easy nor desirable. The thing to change really is ourselves. And to gain this complete control like Sister Gyanamata had over her mind, over her reactions, over her heart, feelings, everything. And to completely give that back to God. And this is the journey. I was speaking with someone today, and on one level, we just have to accept that this is going to take some time, that we've been going in the wrong direction, possibly, for many incarnations. And when we just suddenly understand the right direction towards God realization, in a few weeks or months or something, we can't cry, oh, I've been practicing Kriya for 3 months and I haven't had Samadhi yet. That we have to just keep trying. And in fact, honestly, time really is irrelevant. That we simply have to just keep doing our best in the moment. Master, there's these little quotes that fly around Ananda. The minutes are more important than the years. That's one of Master's. But again, take time, like in the beginning of this little discourse here, take time to meditate on those words for an hour. The minutes are more important than the years. In the last analysis, time doesn't even exist. It's knuckly, it's fake, it's a dream. Time isn't real. And this type of concept, it's not, you can think about it intellectually, that's all right. Not too much, you'll drive yourself crazy. This is the type of thing that has to be experienced in deep, deep meditation, of understanding really that all there is God, that the whole show is a manifestation of God's consciousness, and that we too are a part of that consciousness, and we can choose to manifest that consciousness or choose to flinch because it hurts a little bit and walk away back into ego consciousness, back away back into darkness because it's comfortable, because we're used to it. But just because we're used to it and just because it's comfortable doesn't mean that it's right. And we have to ask ourselves, what is right? What does God want? Not what do I want here? What does God want? And we have to listen. We have to listen very sensitively. We have to learn how to become very sensitive. And becoming sensitive, it's a painful thing. This is a pretty rough world out there. We think I'm just going to have the thick skin, and that's what I need for this world. And that's all right. Have that thick skin. But on the inside, have a very sensitive nature that can feel very deeply. And then you learn how to balance, when to put your antennae, I think is plural, up and out, and feel and really listen sensitively, and when to withdraw them back in, and where to be at any given time. But as Swamiji showed us, we can let our inner peace be our bottom line. We can let joy be not only the goal. If joy is the goal, you're still stuck in time. You're still believing that time exists if joy is the goal. But if joy is the solution right now, that if joy is what we need right now, and we live in that joy, and when our joy levels drop a little bit, then we say, okay, where did I go off in my attunement with joy, in my attunement with Master? And we get that back, that we can live in joy all of the time. If nothing, it's my time to stop talking now, but if nothing else, don't just sort of think, well, joy all the time, maybe. Believe that. Believe that one thing, that you, yes, you, little old you, when you look in the mirror, me, yes, you can live in joy all of the time, always. So now I'll hand it over to Vinny.
World? Still no? Yes, yeah, we live in a practical world, and you need to remember to turn on your microphone. Of course, God alone is the answer to everything, but we have to keep our minds on the day-to-day activities also sometimes. So anyways, this is a very beautiful month we've had with this theme of God alone. In fact, we had a retreat this morning which was again themed around God alone. And it's wonderful, and it seems really good when you're on fire and you want to do, yes, it's all God alone. But there are some times where comes hurdles in life, and when it comes, and when God alone is the mountaintop and we are here standing somewhere in the process of going on the top, this statement, which is an absolute statement of God alone, can be just like mind-boggling. Like, how am I ever going to get there? It just seems so difficult. And if we then start comparing from where we are to where we are supposed to go, it just can seem like, oh my God, I'm never going to get there. Just like all of you must have heard this dream of Master, but I'll still say it. briefly, is that when young Mukunda, it was in his dream, he was in this dusty marketplace, in the Himalayas. And somehow, by the way, there are dusty marketplaces in Himalayas. I've been there, and I just couldn't believe until I had been there. But yes, there is a marketplace and it's crowded and everything. But anyways, coming back to the topic, that he was in this dusty marketplace, and every now and then, he would be facing some people, and behind him was the mountain top and these beautiful, majestic mountains. And people would walk towards him, and he would see people just glimpsing upward, just having this ray of hope that, oh, how beautiful it is. And then they would just sigh, oh, but it's too high for me. And they would walk off. And then again, he would see one more passerby just, looking up, and then, oh, how beautiful. And oh, but it's too high for me. And then after a point, young Mukunda thought, what's wrong over here? And he also just looked behind, and he saw this beautiful mountain having beautiful gardens and flowers and, just beautiful clouds. And he said, oh, that's so beautiful. And then he also had that thought, oh, but it's too high. And then he just caught that thought, and he said, but I can put one step in front of the other. And that is what we all need to do. And just like Jamal was sharing, the minutes are more important than the years in many ways. So if we reflect and if we see, oh, I'm just so far, it might take incarnations, it might take years. But maybe sometimes we just have to look backward and see a few years behind how far we have already come. We are on the spiritual path. Just like it was in the case of Swamiji, he hadn't even heard the word yoga. He jokes sometimes that I thought it might have been some kind of yogurt, and and he hadn't heard the word guru and karma. And similarly, many of these things which were just foreign to our consciousness, like give God alone, like, are you kidding me? But there are so many other things to look for. There's a new iPhone coming, there's a new iPad, and I need this. And what are you talking about God alone? But the fact that we want God alone, even that's a big thing. And there's a chant which we sing at Ananda, I want only thee, Lord, which is, in many ways symbolic of this statement of, God, it's you only that I only need. And once Swamiji was asked this question, Swami Kriyananda, that, what if I think that God is not the only thing that I only need? What if I have these other desires, which we all may have to a certain degree, because if we didn't have any desires, we would be poop and we'll be in samadhi. But there are maybe some subconscious desires, but for most of us, we have come a long way and the clock is just ticking close to the finish line. But there do come these, once in a while karmic bombs or desires where we cannot sincerely say that, God, it's you that I only need. And Swamiji was asked the question, what should I do? And he said, well, you can say, at least mentally, I want to want only thee. And that's a way around it, that look, right now I'm not in a position to say, and like Jamal was saying also, that Sister Gyanamata, she was real. She wasn't just, in some ways I might put it, she wasn't faking spirituality or something. This is what it is, and let's learn to take spirituality and face it from where we are. And so, okay, right now, maybe today my position is not that God is all that I need, but I want to want you, God, and can you help me in the process? And I lack devotion maybe, but can you help me in the process? And that way you will find that, well, all our problems are solved, because whatever problem was, which was basically we were thinking it was coming from us, we are handing that also back to God. And if God says that, I don't know how to make you want me, then you ask him again that, okay, then what is my next step? And if he says no for that, you keep asking God and you drive him nuts until he comes back with an answer. That is the way. Like, I was just sharing in a recent class, I was saying about this poem of Paramhans Yogananda from his book Metaphysical Meditations. The one of the first poems, it's keep calling him, whether he replies or not, keep calling him. And that should basically be our, earnest prayer, that look, I'm going to keep calling you whether you come or not. And there was a time in Swami Kriyananda's life where he felt that, he just couldn't feel his guru's presence. And he just came up with one deep resolution. And he even asked Anandamayi Ma, like, what is happening? And she said, take it as your guru's grace. And he thought, grace? That's one thing I cannot think of in this situation. But he said, even though I don't feel master and maybe he's left me, but I'm going to clench onto him. I'm going to hold him tight. I'm not going to let him go. And after a point, God likes the stubborn ones, you could say. Initially, and even master was, he said he attracts those because it takes a certain level of stubbornness to even want God, because the rest of the world is just telling, really? And they're really trying to distract you most of the time. But anyways, Divine Mother first gives us toys, and if we are happy with the toys, then fine, she, takes her attention elsewhere. But if we keep crying, like, a mother initially, when a child is crying, she might give him some toys and the child will be happy with it. And then some more toys after he cries again. But there comes a point when the child cries so much that the mother has to just stoop below, lift the child, and take in her lap. And that's what we need to do with Divine Mother, that look, you give me no toys now. I need you. I've wandered enough. Please, this is not happening anymore. And the more we, have this deepest yearning and call her out, she has to answer. I mean, what choice does she have, or does he have, depending on how you look at God at? And I myself pray to God as Divine Mother, just like Swamiji used to and Master used to, and I just feel it closer that way. But anyways, however you want to pray to God, and He is the nearest of the near, and you will find just life changes. Simple things become so deeply meaningful. What for someone, when Swamiji was around Master, sometimes Master would say things which might not seem like he was addressing to Swamiji, but it was always addressing to Swamiji many, many times. And years later, he would find that, oh, that is what Master was trying to say with that eye, with that look in his eye, or that is what he was trying to do. And just simple things. Maybe you just see that, a photo of Master just, drops, or just the fan is so fast that Master's photo comes flying to you, or you see that your computer gets frozen and all you can see is Master. I don't know, he can come to you in many, many ways, but as long as we are open to him. If we are open to him, everything is meaningful. And if we aren't, then he might be staring at us and it will still be like, where are you, God? Where are you? And he'll be like, look in front. Have you ever heard of these directions when we are telling people on phone, bhaiya aapko is taraf jana hai? There's an obvious shop, maybe it's an ice cream shop or a tower or a hoarding. It's like, bhaiya wo hoarding dikh rahi hai aapko? And you're like, can you see that hoarding? And the guy's like, no, I cannot see. No, it's right in front of you. No, I cannot see anything. What are you talking about? And similarly, God, he's right in front, but well, we are looking sometimes for the other things. And that's what happens often. Or we are just probably busy with the new advertisement or the new phone which has come, or God knows what. So anyways, I just wanted to, also read a little bit from Sister Gyanamata from this book, God Alone. It's just so beautiful. And what I'm going to read actually is from her personal diary. There are some excerpts from her personal diary which have been added to her to this book, basically. And this is, it doesn't say the year, but the entry says February 22nd. And she writes, no entry in this book since January 2nd. So Gyanamata says she's not written for quite some time. And then she says, day after day of attempted meditation that did not seem even worthy of the name of practice. I have learned one thing anyway, to appreciate the effect upon me of even a small measure of success. Isn't that beautiful? Here is someone who Master said was her most highly advanced woman disciple, and here she says, day after day of attempted meditation that did not seem even worthy of the name of practice, but she still kept at it. She didn't say, oh, you're not coming, I'm not practicing. She kept at it. But here is where my brain just really twisted, where she says, when failure is all the early morning hours being me, I'm so tired. Perhaps I should not call it failure, because I always see light, and that is something. This is where I really wasn't sure. Like, I always see light, and you're calling it failure, but I'm sure advanced disciples have different categories of successes and failures than from what I can relate to. But still, then she says, when discouraged, I think of Swamiji's coming. Last night, I woke up at 1 o'clock with a headache, got up and sat in the kitchen, reading till it subsided, then went into meditation. my mind became filled with peace, and a foretaste of bliss stole over me. I was in this state over 4 hours. Just this little experience was so worthwhile. I have noted the peace and quietness that have filled my mind all day, and have thought of it as a chamber swept and garnished. Isn't that beautiful? And I just, Sister Gyanamata has many accounts of her meditation. She's written so many letters. I would really encourage, if not this book, but just take anything inspiring. And as Jamal was saying, just, he was sharing in the beginning about taking a verse of the Gita and they would meditate on it. So take maybe a paragraph from the autobiography or one of the letters of Sister Gyanamata and go deep into it, like really, really deep into it, and see how it applies to you. And what the saints have done, we can do. And you can say they have ushered the way for us, and we can just follow through and reach where they have reached by just following their way. And she wrote letters to Master. We can write letters to Master also. I mean, let's not think that he's just because he's not in the body, he doesn't have a physical address. We cannot write to him. We can always pray to him, just like she did. There is certainly a story of Master himself, Yogananda himself, where he wrote a letter to God and he received an answer. And there is a sweet story of one of the acharyas. I don't have the exact story right, but this is before Swamiji passed away, Swami Kriyananda, and they had written a letter to Swami Kriyananda asking for his guidance. And then later, they sat in meditation, and the acharya felt an answer from Swamiji, but they wanted to be sure that this is, maybe we should just wait for Swamiji to reply via email, because those days Swamiji would reply via emails. And although when they met Swamiji, and Swamiji just looked at them and said, I've answered your question in your meditation. This is essentially what the answer was. He said, I've answered your question. He'd replied to them. Maybe I don't have the exact words right, but essentially he had replied to them, not necessarily via a text message or an email or any way else, but in meditation. And so similarly, we can pray to Master. And this is a fun thing. We can still write our own journal, and address it to Divine Mother, to Master, and then look years later and see, oh, wow, I've grown. I just want to share a fun story and end with. I had the habit, and I, to a degree, still have the habit of writing before going to bed. And once after a deep meditation, and this was very early on the path, I felt so much peace, and I thought, oh, I thought I should write about this. And I wrote, this is so real that no matter who says anything about meditation or this being my spiritual path, I know this is true. Nobody can convince me that, this is just any kind of hodgepodge experience or whatever. This is reality. And I closed my diary and forgot about it maybe for months. And then there was a day where, I don't know, my just people who knew me, my friends and family, they thought I was going crazy, and they started attacking me like, this is just nonsense, and you can't meditate, and you have to be practical in life, and you have to be this. And I was very new on the path. I just didn't know what to do about it. And I was heartbroken, and I got back to my room, and I was just, somehow my diary was lying around, and I thought, let me just pick up and read something. And I picked up this exact page where it says, no matter anyone who says me anything about it, I know this is true. And I just shared this with a friend, and he said, it seems like you were writing a letter for yourself in the future. But anyways, and later, even if we feel discouraged, we have experiences, we have miracles in our life, but we forget about them. And when, we are discouraged, it's always nice to go back and refer to them and see that, look, I'm not such a dumb guy after all. I'm following a deep spiritual path, and I've had experiences. I'm not like stuck as sometimes it seems like. So that's also something which you can use, which I think Sister Gyanamata also did. So we could also, try something which she did. And of course, we all have our individual ways of doing things. But let's try to find our own unique way of affirming and reaffirming in our lives that, yes, God alone is all we ever need. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining and sharing this experience. And I hope we can continue sharing. And next week, this week was our last, webinar on the topic of God alone. Next week, we will have another topic we will come up, which will be announced in due time. So, but thank you so much for joining us. Joy to you.